How to look up values horizontally. We're used to looking up everything vertically. How about horizontal? We're going to use a couple different tools. We're going to use HLOOKUP and XLOOKUP. Here is the narrative, and I'm going to explain how to put all this stuff together. Brad Williams, Excel Prime. Section 14.4, how to look up values horizontally. Here we're going to be looking up using the HLOOKUP. This is the opposite of the VLOOKUP. The VLOOKUP, we were looking for information in columns. Here we're going to be looking up information in rows. So I'm going to introduce you to the XLOOKUP function that accomplishes that and a heck of a lot more. So here's a review of HLOOKUP. And here are the arguments: the lookup value, the value to look up, table array, the table from which to retrieve data, the row index, the row number from which to retrieve data, and the range lookup optional. If you select one, which is an approximate match, if you're looking for an approximate match, Excel will spit out something eventually. But if you have an exact match, Excel can't find an answer, it's going to spit out an error. So the way we remedy that is we use the if error function, and you may want to just incorporate that whenever you throw in an HLOOKUP and a VLOOKUP. The XLOOKUP function has an argument to address that concern. Keep in mind, when you're working with the H and the V, to avoid errors, you can always incorporate the if error argument. And I will incorporate the if error condition in this example. Let me introduce you to the XLOOKUP function. Use the XLOOKUP function to find things, and that's a broad term, but XLOOKUP is a powerful tool. Use the XLOOKUP function to find things in a table or range by row. For example, look up the price of an automotive part by the part number, or find an employee name based on their employee ID. With XLOOKUP, you can look in one column for a search term and return a result from the same row in another column, regardless of which side the turn column is on. What are they saying? We know from the VLOOKUP, we always have to look to the left. What does that mean? Here's a traditional VLOOKUP. We have the VLOOKUP here. What we're looking for is we want this amount here looking up from the date. So we traditionally will look up the date over here on the left. We want the total that matches this particular date. That's the lookup. Traditionally, we will go VLOOKUP I5, B the range, this entire range here, B5 to G12. What column? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is the VLOOKUP. We're going from left to right. What if we change this? What if we take this example, copy, we'll just modify this a bit. Let's add a column, insert, let's change the date. Let's just move it. We're still looking at 428. So we have to change this a bit. The range is fine, but we're going to look up J28, but our range is a little different here. We're going to look at a range now that covers this information. We want to look up column 5, and we get an NA error because VLOOKUP has to find the reference point at its far left and then move right. Using the VLOOKUP, we can't find the data moving from right to left. We have to find data left to right. Using XLOOKUP, we can solve this as it's laid out in this position. The VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP, if this was transposed, won't work. Let me introduce you to the verbiage of the XLOOKUP. In the XLOOKUP, as I mentioned, this is how it looks. We have a lookup value, which is required. We have a lookup array, that's also required. We have a return array required, and then we have a lot of optional features within this big old formula. The lookup value, the value to search for. The lookup array, the array or range to search. The return array, the array or a range to return. If not found, where a valid match is not found, return the if not found text you supply. You can put anything you want in there. If a valid match is not found, is missing, NA is returned. Match mode, optional. Specify the match type. We have 0, which is an exact match. If not found, return NA. This is the default. -1, exact match. If none found, return the next smaller item. 1, exact match. If none found, return the next larger item. 2, a wildcard match where the asterisk or the question mark and tilde have special meaning. And lastly, search mode. Specify the search mode to use. 1, perform a search starting at the first item. This is the default. -1, perform a reverse search starting at the last item. Now, we could have used this particular argument in the previous example. We were looking from the last item and moving left, as opposed to finding the first item and moving right. 2, perform a binary search that relies on lookup array being sorted in ascending order. If not sorted, invalid result will be returned. And -2, perform a binary search that relies on lookup array being sorted in descending order. If not sorted, invalid results will be returned. Yeah, it's a lot to bite off, but it saves you time in the long run. We're going to get into the XLOOKUP in detail later. Here's just a quick introduction. Here's the XLOOKUP. It's going to be structured almost the exact same way with a few more components as this HLOOKUP. So let's go back into the HLOOKUP. HLOOKUP, what are we looking for? We're looking for number 5. Where? What's the range? It says C4 to F5. Well, we're looking from C4 to F5. Remember with the vertical, we were going down this way. Here, we're going across. What are we doing? We're looking for the row. This would be row 1. This would be row 2. We're so used to counting columns. Here, we have to count rows. Again, quick review. We are looking for 5. Whatever is in 5, show us the result. And we're going across and across. We go to the second example. We're looking for 18. Well, here you're going to go, what? Well, you see there's only 3 arguments. And here we have the HLOOKUP says only 3 are required. And so that's all we have. Well, what if that 4th argument is not there? The automatic default is an approximate match. You're saying, what? Well, we're looking for what? We're looking for 18.
Be sure to check out all of our Excel courses. Excel data and text manipulation. We have an advanced beginners and intermediate course. Excel essentials. This is for individuals new to Excel. We have an advanced, excellent beginners, level 1 and level 2, and intermediate level course. Excel formulas, formulas only. We have a beginner, an advanced, and an intermediate level course. Click on any of the links. There's a short video that explains everything about the course. Check it out.
If you look at the information in the rows, all we have is 0, 10, 25, and 50. Well, the way Excel works is if it's an approximate match, it's going to look for something close to the actual number. Here, you're going to see the answer as 5%. So looking for the next closest, anything under 25, it's going to default down a number. It's going to default down to 10. That could be serious because you have a huge spread here. You would think, well, why don't they split it? Well, I didn't design the program. If you go to 77, anything above 50 does 15. What about 37? Well, it defaults down to 10. If we change this to 0 and it wants an exact match, it won't work. If we change this to 0, it won't work. If we change this to 1, which is the default, it works. Keep that in mind. If you're looking for an approximate match, you can leave the 4th argument blank, or you can make it work explicitly. If you are looking for an exact match in this scenario, and you know there's a possibility of an error, we can go in here and we can insert that if error argument. And all you do is you put in if error, and I showed you this before, if error. You're going to need that HLOOKUP locked up in parentheses to go HLOOKUP. If there's an error, what do you want? You want a blank? You want a 0? I usually just go blank. Well, sometimes I just go 0. You can just put 0, and then in parentheses, you could change this to the general to a 0. Or you can say, well, started with a quote, not exact match. And you can insert anything you want. You can say not an exact match, but that way you'll avoid the NA error. Brad Williams, XL Prime.